welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Hello, friends. The opening verse of the 10th Psalm reads, "Why standest thou afar off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble?" The psalm is 18 verses long, and most of them describe the cruelty that is so common in our world by people who abuse and mistreat those over whom they have control. Some of the verses say things like, "The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. His ways are always grievous. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. In the secret places doth he murder the innocent." Assuming David was king when he made these observations about the world around him, it's easy to see how many ways he could have found them true. A king has always to be on his guard, as much for those who surround him in his royal court as from foes from without. David's reign was filled with people who wished him ill. But the psalm can also be applied in another way, for not all evils take place in kings' palaces. When evening comes, people come home from the day's activities and the door closes on the outside world. Many and many a time the innocent are murdered in those secret places. Or in other words, far too often little children bear the brunt of parents or caregivers who have put their own selfish, twisted pleasures ahead of the emotional and physical needs of blameless little hearts God has entrusted to their care. There are husbands who abuse the bottle, who spend money needed for milk for the babies on toys for grown-ups. There are wives who will leave little children with a television babysitter in a nasty, dirty house while they pretty up themselves for another life outside the squalor in which their little ones live. It's a mystery. How does a dad who is separated from the mother of his child shave away some of the meager minutes the law allows on his weekend visit so he can go sooner to his sports car races and leave the crying brown eyes of his little boy wistfully following after him? Have we come to live in a world so twisted and unfeeling the bitter child's cry, "Daddy, please don't go," has lost all its tug on her heartstrings? When it is time to comfort the once pure little girl whose innocence has been sacrificed by her mother so she could bring a stranger with her behind that closed family door, never supposing he would stoop to molestation, what do we say? Many a person has felt just like David said in the poignant verses of this ancient psalm when he cried out to God for the injustices that are done in the world. It's a mystery. The Bible tells us God is absolutely just, and we have to believe that or find ourselves hopelessly floundering amid the darkness and cruelty that are the common fare of life. From the time when God allowed Cain to pick up a rock and crush his brother's skull, people have pondered why God allows what he does in his world, as Abel's parents surely did through their tears. There are abuses so awful, so repugnant, society is at last compelled to create and enforce a legal code to protect itself and punish the guilty. But even that is at best imperfect and often frustrated from lack of evidence. So how are we to find inward peace and stability whereby to balance our own lives? Where some extra comfort and wisdom to give to those weaker than we are as they try to build a useful adult life from the shattered wreckage of a mutilated childhood, or the agony of an unjust separation, the dreadful sorrow that is the fruit of murder, the myriad other miseries that come from living in an unjust world? Let's try what David did, for the 10th Psalm contains answers as well as questions. Here are some of them. "Thou hast seen it, for thou beholdest mischief and spite, to requite it with thy hand. The poor committeth himself unto thee. Thou art the helper of the fatherless. Lord, thou hast heard the desire of the humble to judge the fatherless and oppressed, that the man of the earth may no more oppress. God has promised to judge or consider the plight of those who have no protector, and the pain of those who have unreasonable burdens imposed upon them. God's message is, no matter what happens, never lose faith in him."
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at GodsFiveMinutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.